Tonight, we have a very special guest. Needless to say, or introduce, I'm sure everyone here knows who Ash is. And Ash is one of the light workers in our community. And the reason he's here tonight is we would like to honor him. To honor him for all the things that he's doing. To honor the mystic in him. Mystics are not different kind of human beings, but every human being is a different kind of a mystic. And Ash has a lot of gifts, and I believe that the universe gives each and every one of us gifts so we can use it to help and heal and empower each other. And he happens to have a lot of those gifts. He has he has a voice that's one of a kind, his music ability, his words, his poetry, his insight, his spirituality, his personality, and all the things that he does. From the first moment I met him and I talked to him, I could feel just the transformation, and I felt blessed that he is part of this world. So let's welcome Ash.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I love the way you talk about yourself.
Yes. Cut that one. So anyway.
B-roll.
B-roll, exactly.
So, when you look on the internet and you just Google the name Ash Ruiz, probably pages and pages will just come up. And there's a lot of information, a lot of things about your music, some things about your events that you've been involved in. But what I really like to know is about Ash, the human being, about your childhood, about how and where you grew up. That's my first question.
Yay. Well, again, so honored to sit here with each of you. So many beautiful faces, all these wide open hearts. Everyone in this room, everyone in the room, their bedrooms, or wherever it is they're watching this today. I grew up here in South Florida, actually. I was born in Miami, Florida. My father is of Cuban descent. My mother is of Italian, English, Irish, and Welsh descent. I was born into a very musical family. I had one of my grandmothers was an opera singer, and I had another grandmother that sang jazz. And they were always singing around the house. So while one was cleaning, she was singing a Billie Holiday song, and the other one was singing Ave Maria, doing something else. And I loved mimicking sounds. I loved mimicking whether it were birds or animals, especially singers. Or sirens. I would just hear things and loved. It was just, I didn't have to think about it. It was a natural thing to do, to use my voice as a way to mimic not just the sound, but you know, in hindsight, I can see that I was also mimicking the vibration, mimicking where they were coming from, the intention. And I started singing. I devoured my parents' record collection. My mother listened to Joni Mitchell and the Beatles and Pink Floyd, and then my dad listened to all the Motown and Al Green and Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder. And music was my favorite way to communicate. Singing was my favorite way to communicate. My mother says I was singing before I was talking. And so I've always loved music. And it's always been the game changer in my experience. In a sense, it's like a vortex that has taken me to all the beautiful places I've experienced in my life. So at 6 years old, I started singing in a gospel choir in the Miami Christian Center. I was at my grandmother's house, and I was playing with my G.I. Joes. And as I was playing with my G.I. Joes, I was singing Aretha Franklin's version of Amazing Grace in the backyard. So I was like, amazing, amazing grace. So playing with, and the neighbor heard me, and she was like, who's singing? Who's that singing? So she found out that it was my grandmother's grandson singing Aretha Franklin's Amazing Grace. And so she was all excited and took me to her church. And I started singing solos at this church. And it was an all-Baptist church. And it was really powerful. At that church, I learned a valuable lesson of, more than the lesson was the confirmation that we were all just instruments. And so when I had the mic and I was performing, I didn't have to think about what I was going to sing. I didn't have to think about how I was going to hold the mic. I didn't have to think about how I was going to look at people. And, it was just came through naturally. The moment I did think about it, somebody in the church, an older gentleman came up to me and said, "You're amazing singer, boy, but are you thinking about God while you're up there?" And I went, okay. And so then the next time I was performing, I was like, I guess I better really think about God. I'm 6 years old. I really need to think about God. And in the process of that, I don't know how many weird notes I hit. I don't know how many, the energy was off. And my choir director was like, "What's wrong with you? What happened? What were you doing?" And I said, "Well, I was thinking about God." And she's like, "Child, you don't need to think about God." She's like, "There's a moment you gotta stop thinking and just be in the presence of. The presence isn't a thought." And that was huge. That was a really beautiful confirmation. From there, I still sung, and then at one moment at 14, I was, I went to New World School for the Arts. I was there for 2 weeks. I was excited to stay longer, but then Menudo came, which was a Latin boy band. To the school, they said that I had the Menudo look, and they asked me to go and audition, and I went to the audition, and I became a part of this phenomenon known as Menudo. And at 14, started traveling the world and performing for huge numbers of people in stadiums across South America and the United States and Europe. And that was wonderful, wonderful school, because in the experience of going from country to country, all the different social classes, meeting regular people, meeting people that were superstars and had everything, it just confirmed that we're all the same, that we cry in the same language, we laugh in the same language. And that's really where the love for humanity started to blossom in a really profound way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amazing.
I love you. I so love you.
Thank you. So that really explains a lot, because I was reading in your bio about your transformation. That one day somehow the helicopter landed in Peru, and you looked at that ancient holy site, and something just snapped in you. So I really want to hear more about this moment, because from what you just said about, you had this, when you were introduced to God the first time, that He's watching you, and that how that made you very conscious of what's going on, and kept you from actually being in the moment. How did that all change when you went to Peru, and as the story goes, you stepped off the helicopter, and something just, I want to hear more about that.
Fun, I know, helicopters in Machu Picchu, and there's all kinds of fun stuff there. But yes, I was 16 years old, and my whole being was simmering with life experience. My father had just passed away. He was diagnosed with AIDS when I was 12 years old. So that was a huge support for me to question all kinds kinds of things about what life was, what death was, um, and just noticing that as his body was deteriorating, his spirit was getting brighter and brighter. And that was a huge lesson for me, the way he accepted it and lived with such grace and loving acceptance. We had a lot of family members that turned their backs on us, that didn't want my father around, didn't want us around. You know, it was 87, 88, so there was still a lot of ignorance about what that meant. And so I had family members that didn't want us touching them, and didn't want, there were people in the neighborhood that wrote horrible things on the door. You know, so I like to say that all those things that we tend to feel victims to are really here, not happening to us, but happening for us. So in hindsight, I could see, and during those times that it was fertilizer. I like to say it, what is it, my grandmother once said it, take shit to make the flowers grow. It's like, okay, well. So having that there, also having the question, you know, being in front of thousands of people and having girls look at you and just reach their hand up and just be like, I love you. And it's just like, wow, they have no clue who I am. You know, it was just like, who are they talking to? What is this? You know, I had that question. What is that? What is this whole thing? And then also, I had the good fortune, there's an amazing sculptor by the name of Felipe Letterson, who wanted to do sculptures of menudo. He did all these amazing artists, and he would also get a river boat that he rode in the Amazon and would go to indigenous tribes, and he would make sculptures out of the indigenous shamans. And he wanted to do menudo too, indigenous shamans and menudo. I don't know. In his world, it worked. He knew something. But it was really cool. So in other words, 2 weeks before Machu Picchu, I found myself enclosed in this position. I had no clue what Namaste was. I never did yoga before. And I was encapsulated in a huge, what they do is they put Vaseline in all your hair, and then they start throwing plaster all over your body. So I was in a rock. It's kind of like a sensory deprivation tank. So I couldn't hear anything or see anything. I had these 2 little straws coming out of my nostrils. And the other guys kind of freaked out during the experience, and I was kind of excited. I was like, am I going to freak out? That'd be interesting. Let's see. But I noticed that in that space of silent, still presence, I never felt more at home. I never felt more at ease. And then that began my love affair with really exploring the bottomless, shoreless depths of being, of what awareness was. Because in that space of silence, all the thoughts that arose, I noticed they spontaneously self-released the moment they appeared. All the sensations that arose, they spontaneously self-released on their own, without, and any thought about the thought staying or going, that also spontaneously self-released. So that was really powerful. And then with that brewing in my atmosphere, going to Machu Picchu, as soon as I stepped off the helicopter, I had one of those moments where the apparent background of timeless peace became the foreground, and the foreground of our amazing capacity to tell stories and believe our thoughts became the background. So nothing was present but infinite life, but an easeful, relaxed perfection. And even though I could still see everything, it was clear that no thing had an independent nature, that it was all held in this embrace of awareness. And it was very clear that it was an awareness that wasn't in the space of comings and goings, that it was just a simple, everyday energy and chakras look amazing, and when we feel like shit, it's the common denominator of all experience. And then the person pulled my arm and started doing the makeup, and started doing the hair, and it's time to film this video, and tears, the body's crying. My manager's saying, "What's wrong with you? We gotta film this video," and you're like in La La Land. And one thing that was powerful is that this video, required a lot of physical dancing, a lot of movement. There's a lot of shaking, a lot of thrusting, and no matter how hard I shook, no matter how fast I moved, it only amplified the stillness. It wasn't in opposition to stillness. It was evidence of stillness. No matter how loud I sung, no matter how loud I screamed, no matter how loud it wasn't in opposition to silence. It only was the evidence of silence. It was silence. It was a celebration of the deepest silence, the singing. My world turned inside out. And I had no clue. I wasn't familiar with any of Eastern philosophies or New Age philosophies, I just knew that there was an overwhelming sense of peace. And I also knew that I wanted to find out more about it. So even though there was a sense and experience of me not being who I thought I was, the thought of me wanted to find out what that was.
It's amazing. The Sufis, they say that when you hear the bird singing on the tree, you don't ask him about his credentials. Or what made him a singer. So I guess it just is.
There's another saying I love that I use when I give vocal lessons for people, and that says, if only the best only the best birds in the forest sang, what would that sound like? So yeah, it's really beautiful that there's this life that it expresses itself in its authenticity that looks like everything.
Just awareness of what you really have. They say the ego's biggest trick to keep you searching all your life outside of you for something that you really have. I'm going to cut that. So because it's about you. No, it's all right.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Wasn't it wonderful that this about me,
It is.
when we get down to the meat of it, really includes everything. And we're just
Just
seeking the self.
another face of God.
Yeah. So we can continue talking about me.
I think it's all.
Bring it.
Okay, enough about me. So now, what do you think about me?
I absolutely adore you.
This is going to be fun. I don't know if I'm going to cut that or not. So,
You're like Kali. I love it.
not Shakti.
Cutting off.
Cut, right? Yeah. I hope we have enough tape for this. We don't use tape anymore, it's just a hard drive finally. How did that really change you? I mean, you said that you were a musician, you were the singer, you were the teen idol, you had all those feelings, you're on stage, all the girls just chasing you, and you were known all over the world. And I also know that you've had the first, or maybe the only gold record that's single with a band, right? That was yours, right?
Well, I had a song. I was the first Menudo to write a song.
Yes. And how did that experience change you? How did it affect your career and your outlook on the world and on things in general.
Well, the powerful aspect of that, about that experience was in my search for some stability that was tangible and stable. In the experience I had in Machu Picchu, that opening, that moment of clear seeing what's only ever the case, it supported the recognition of the stability of being, the stability of awareness. And then, yeah, that shifted my whole experience, because it just confirmed this deep love I had for humanity, just confirmed this deep longing for everybody to be able to live in harmony and to see each other and recognize each other. Another beautiful and huge aspect of my open heart at such a young age was the tendency of this body's the sexuality. You know, so I wasn't the regular little boy attracted to little girls. I was attracted to little boys too. And then having everyone tell me that was wrong, but knowing that that wasn't so. Like it felt, it was so beautiful and so pure and so innocent. I knew instantly that as soon as an adult told me that it was wrong, that they were wrong. That they weren't seeing something, that they were. And that really supported the recognition that no adult knew anything. In other words, nobody really knew anything. It was huge for me, because in talking to people and being with people, I could just hear them communicate their worlds, their perceptions. So it was just like, oh, you're telling me your world. But I knew that none of it was solid. That it was all mirages, interacting with mirages. Assumptions, mingling with assumptions. And that really supported, again, recognizing what was stable. The aspect of myself, the aspect of the moment that didn't need a philosophy to be as it is. The aspect of the moment that didn't need a thought to be as it is. That didn't need to remove a negative thought to be as it is. That didn't need to remove a neutral thought, or didn't need to exalt a positive thought. And that was just great, great freedom. A freedom that supported the recognition that in being here, resting and relying on this stability, benefit was all that could come through. So what did I want to sing about? This, in a million different ways. What did I want to talk about? This, in a million different ways. What did I want to, how dancing was a celebration of this. Meeting people on the streets was a celebration of this. Having a talk about anything was a celebration of this. And it's just so juicy how the celebration continues to this moment.
Thank you. It's really amazing. I can just see from the moment or the point when you felt that God is watching me and you just couldn't sing till the moment that you realized that God likes me for who I am, and you actually sang from the heart. I can see that whole transformation. It reminds me of a poem by T.S. Eliot. It says, "We shall not cease exploring, and the end of our exploration will be when we reach the point where we started. Then we'll know the place for the first time." So I guess sometimes we have to go full circle in order for us to come back to the beginning and see where we're at. I love your lyrics, and I love your music, and I was honored last month on your birthday's week, right? You came here, and you had sang for us, and it was really amazing. You said a lot of great things, and I was wondering, what inspires you Like when I hear you say, talk about the celebration of separation, and you talk about the rainbow and all the colors, how it's a celebration of separation. And what inspires you?
Well, it's really, really exciting times. You know, it's like the dawning of in our species, where we really get to be with one another, we really get to sit with one another without having anything to change, without needing anyone to change, without needing anyone to think a different thought, or feel a different feeling, or believe a different belief, or worship a different God. You know, it's like we really have the capacity to not just create peace in the world, but to be the peace of the world in a true, non-contrived way. What I love about now is that there's a maturity happening in the New Age community, and before there was the intention to be peaceful, okay? And all the work, all the effort to try to be peaceful. And I know the moments that I tried to be peaceful, I was the biggest bitch. Lord have mercy, my poor brothers and sisters. You can cut that too if you want to. I don't know what the thing, but or you can just slap it. Give it a slap. Bitch slap, yeah. That on the cut.
It's for our private viewing.
But yes. Peace, we discover that it's the fragrance of who we are, naturally. You know, that we're discovering just allowing ourselves to be as we are, allowing the moment to be as it is, allowing each other to be, allowing our family members, our lovers, the world, this country, that country. It's like we rest in who we are. So then even allowing is discovered to be our natural state, naturally allowing. It's not even something we need to do, allow. Peace, it's what animates even more. And there's nothing sweeter for us to be able to come together and amplify that.
Thank you. Being an artist is wonderful because you get to express all your creativity. The flip side of that is the job. So, what does it really entail? What are some of the things that you need to do on a daily basis as an artist? Tell me like a typical day for an artist.
Well, there's the artist, and then there's an artist with a manager. The artist walks around the forest, enjoys the butterflies and the sunshine, and it's just an open vessel, availability for that with this moment wants to communicate to itself to come through. The music, the art, the books, the artist with the manager. There's a whole different story. Because the manager's like, hey, stop looking at that butterfly. Time to write this, time to have this meeting, to have this conversation. Let's look at this. There's something on the planet called a plan. The planet has a plan. We got a planet on the planet. And so it's really wonderful. But one thing that's so beautiful is our capacity to just do what it is we do well, and to come together and see how, in me being an artist, doing that well, my singing, my performing, and then my manager doing his planning and booking, and it's like we get to all come together and celebrate our gifts, and then see how that manifests in the world.
Yes. I can see you're very.
Hi, Brian.
I can see you're a very public person. You just tell it like it is.
That's right.
You put things on YouTube. You're everywhere. You don't. You really don't have a mask on. Does that make it hard for you to keep a certain image as an artist or a public figure in your private life or who you are or what you believe in? Do you feel sometimes that that you need to change one or the other, or you feel that it is okay to be both and you have no problem either in your career or in your personal life?
Well, right now I really enjoy being myself, and I really enjoy seeing what the world communicates, what the world tells me it is, who people tell me they are by their interpretations, their ideas, their beliefs. I really feel that more than ever we're moving into a space of true clarity and transparency. And so it's nice to know that we're all the same. Oh gosh, to be able to walk on this planet and know that we have the same thoughts. There's no such thing as a new stressful thought. Like, yeah, you weren't that original. Same thoughts, same. And it's really beautiful, because in that sameness, we celebrate the authenticity and support the space for the authenticity to come through. That authenticity that shines as each of us. So I don't think about what the image is, or, I really enjoy, a lot of other people around me think about the image and share their opinions and stuff. But I receive it fully and then notice what love wants to do. And I live in that space of love. For me, love is intelligence, the only intelligence.
And it's fully respected and appreciated for the authenticity is evident. Earlier you were talking about the New Age and the peace and the world love movement and stuff, and you touched on something. There is the line sometimes gets blurred between activism and slacktivism. A lot of people just think if there's an issue and you just click like on Facebook or share it, you're done. You're done your job. And to me, I look at that as slacktivism. It's just like So I was going to ask you about when it comes to the Karmageddon, your vision of what kind of personal transformation for example, it doesn't. How I look at like for me, the example I always use, I don't have to go and throw rocks on the people that raise chicken in chicken mills, for example. But what I could do is I just don't go. I don't buy any eggs if they're not cage free. So I don't support. This is what I do. That's part of my personal, little things like that, like stand.
Okay, yes.
The
So
lines that you draw.
Experience.
Yes.
Okay, well, what's so beautiful is that I noticed that in shifting the allegiance from a closed mind to an open mind, I am present to the silent, still voice of intuition. I am present for insight. I am present for nudges and movements. When you live presently, first of all, you're here. And when you're here, you're fully available. So when in the past, when the allegiance was on separation, in other words, there's all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of ideas about where I am, what's happening, what needs to happen, what shouldn't happen, what That has its place. But then there's a moment of transcendence. And then you're in a space of non-duality. You're a space where everything is the celebration of light. Everything is in support of light. And that could sound lacking to ego, but in my experience, it really supports responding to the world from a fresh perspective, as opposed to responding to the world from the past. And in this space of open responsibility, you get to freshly discover new ways of interacting with people, new ways of being, new ways of shopping, new foods to eat, new places to go, new communities to support. And life really takes care of itself. And so what's so beautiful about that is that that's living from peace. So peace in the micro, in your own being, which includes the whole world. That's what's so beautiful. The world ends now in peace. That's what's so lovely about the moment. The moment is so fresh and so present. The past cannot catch up to it. As every word I'm speaking is if my mouth was a cliff and the words are just diving off of the cliff into the present moment, the present moment, the present moment, the present moment.
Thank you. You answered all 3 areas. Usually this is the time when we invite people to ask you questions.
Juicy questions.
Juicy questions. The juicier, the better.
Thank you, Elisa.
You want any questions? Going once? Well, come here if you want. Come sit right here.
Hello, beautiful.
Hi. Sure.
I would like to know, how can Ashley keep his constant joy? I have always seen you joyful.
Oh, I love that.
How can you keep constant joy? That's what we need.
Oh, how beautiful. Well, one thing, I so love this. I love that this being gets to reflect that in you. And so one thing that's fun is that there's an Ashley, and Ashley is this beautiful idea that comes and goes. And then there's joy. I noticed that joy is my real name. Joy doesn't come and go. Ashley does. Ashley and all that means, all that appears and then doesn't appear. But joy calls this joy. Joy for me is synonymous with light. It's a shine. And then when you notice that everything is a ray of light, so there's no tendency alive to move away from a particular experience, to move away from a feeling that's either negative, positive, or neutral, or a sensation, because I come to discover that all experience is rays of light from the unmovable, unwavering shine of beingness, of just natural presence.
Were you a joyful child? Were you a joyful child?
I was a joyful child, and I was a very depressed child. I was on a seesaw. It was like mind. When you believe yourself to be mind, you see yourself going up and down. One day you're peaceful, one day you feel like crap. One day you're enlightened, one day you're completely ignorant. That's the nature of mind. Mind continuously telling a story, continuously putting meaning on a particular sensation. And so what's so wonderful is our capacity as the awareness that sees that, that's always present, we can relax into that and then familiarize ourselves as that being our primary identity, which doesn't exclude any of the feelings. So feelings still arise, they just have a different luster to them.
Final question.
Did you have
Anybody, you have a question, please? No? We're going to cut whatever you don't like, so don't worry.
Hi. So what I've found is being here and being in a space that you've so eloquently described takes some practice. The distinction between mind and no mind and joy and the ups and downs. Do you find that it's practice at this stage of your beingness?
In this, well, what's so beautiful is that the practice, what I've discovered as the most beneficial practice is the no practice practice. So our willingness to not touch it. It's really fun. You start seeing mind and its tendencies. You get really familiar. It's like a very sweet education of what mind is. And we could say the annoying parts of mind are three things. And these are the usual tendencies of all humanity. And that is one, the tendency to indulge in our minds, to itch it. So we have a thought, and then we overthink it, and we have all these other thoughts about thoughts. So it's kind of like it's just a big humping rabbit orgy happening. And more and more thoughts, and that's the itch to run. And can anyone relate to being in that headspace of that's one of the tendencies of mine that we could notice. This is really cool because then we think, oh, they're humping. Okay, here they go. You know, fur and carrots and lube flying everywhere. And then another tendency that mind does that's really fun that we have the capacity to notice is avoiding. So that's when we indulge in our entertainment to avoid the moment. That's where all the addictions arise, our avoidance of the moment just as it is. So avoidance. And then the third one that we do really well in the spiritual communities to some degree is changing it. That's another way to perpetuate separation, is wanting to change it, wanting to dress it up, wanting to alter it, wanting to vibe it, to blast it, to put it in drag. And nothing wrong or right with any of it. That's just a dance that we've been engaged in for the past couple centuries as a species. But now we're recognizing another option, and that's the option of the no practice practice. The option of allowing everything really to be as it is for a moment. And that doesn't mean that we allow the world to be as it is. The world begins here, right? The world begins here. And so just allowing ourselves to be as it is, our thoughts, our emotions, the body, we get familiar with our natural perfection. And then the more we get familiar with our natural perfection, the more it's obvious that this is continuous. It is unwavering, doesn't come or go, isn't at all affected or stained by anything that appears in it, any emotion, any thought, any feeling. It just serves as evidence of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the Sufis, they say that, as a Sufi saying, it says, I was at one with the divine until I became aware of it. Right? Yeah, once you start thinking about it, all bets are off. We're not there anymore. Right? The mind gets in between. Right? So I have a question for you. You know, life shows up no matter what we do, no matter how we plan, and what we prepare, what we plan. No matter, there's no amount of a spiritual awareness that can exempt any of us from going through pain, through difficulties and challenges. When things seem to be falling apart, when everything else fails, what keeps you going? What keeps you just gets you out of bed and just motivates you, just put one foot in front of the other?
Love. This love. This love that's synonymous with light. This light that's synonymous with presence. This presence that's synonymous with being. This being that's synonymous with life. This life that's synonymous with this moment just as it is.
Thank you. The love you are. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys. So beautiful.
I can't wait for the big day. That's October 20th. That's a big celebration, and
A
we're going to
big
be there.
celebration. Yes,
We're
we
gonna be there
look
with
forward to
everybody else.
celebrating with everybody.
Thank you.
Karmageddon, big time.
Big time.
It's like the Karmageddon Supreme.
At T.Y.Park. Yeah, thank you. At T.Y.Park. Okay, I guess it's party time now.